Monday Night Football, we have the Minnesota Vikings taking on the San Francisco 49ers, and I'm about to breaking down everything that you guys need to know to make some money on tonight's games on FanDuel and DraftKings. So do me a favor as you're watching this, like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. It is appreciated a whole bunch. If you want to sign up for the NFL package at Stokastic.com, there's a link below in the description box. You are going to get everything that we have included in our football package under one subscription. So our Sims tool, contest generator, all of that under one package. And let's go ahead and look at some of those tools and what is projecting well for today. I've got lineups built out here for DraftKings, and then I'll do it for FanDuel as well right after this. So lineups here for DK will favor the top 150, and a handful of lineups here that are projecting out quite a bit better than the other ones. And the number one overall projected lineup here by simulated ROI, it is Brandon Ayuk. The 49ers defense, Brandon Powell, Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, and then the Vikings defense. So actually a double defense lineup, which defenses apparently, no matter what the matchup is, have just crushed in primetime football games. Like even last night, we have a Vikings-Eagles game, and you think, oh, surely it was a Dolphins-Eagles game. I think I said Vikings there. In that matchup, you're thinking, surely this is going to be the game where the offenses stand out, defenses don't matter. And no, not the case at all. There was a defensive touchdown. It was a low-scoring game. So here we go. Another double defense slate. Seems like it's going to be another one that could potentially be bad to watch just from the standpoint of right away projections are telling us to play the defenses in top projected lineup. If we look at the lineups that are expected to have the most dupes, a couple of lineups that are expected to be duped pretty heavily. Christian McCaffrey with the 49ers defense, Madison, Brandon Powell, Brock Purdy, and then George Kittle. And this lineup also expect to be duped a whole bunch. Juwan Jennings, Alexander Madison, Brock Purdy, Jordan Addison, Kirk Cousins, and TJ Hawkinson. But now let's go and look at the exposures and see which players we're getting the most of across these lineups. Starting here with Brock Purdy. And one thing actually that I'm noticing right away, so many of our highest exposed players here are coming from the 49ers. So Brock Purdy, we're getting to in 59% of lineups, getting to a lot of Brandon Powell from the Vikings. Not a guy that we usually think of playing a ton of in DFS, but why is it that he's standing out here? Well, here's my suspicion. We're getting so much 49ers exposure that in a lot of these lineups, they're going to be 49ers onslaught stacks, and then you just need one player from the Vikings on the other side, and that's where a cheap guy like Brandon Powell comes into play. So actually getting him in north of 50% of lineups, by far our most overweight player here in the flex spot. In the captain spot, getting to a good amount of Brandon Ayuk. Keep in mind for the 49ers, Deebo Samuel out, expected to miss about 2 games due to a shoulder injury. So Brandon Ayuk is going to become the number one wide receiver. And he's kind of actually surpassed Deebo as the number one wide receiver for the 49ers this year. And now there's just going to be no doubt about it. So getting to nearly 50% of Brandon Ayuk in the captain spot and then 40% of him in the flex spot. So all things told here, 88.7% of our top 150 lineups here have Brandon Ayuk. So clearly somebody's a very strong target. We're coming in a little bit underweight to the field on Christian McCaffrey. Remember, McCaffrey's a little bit banged up right now. He's not 100%. There was some question whether he was going to play or not today. The 49ers have since said they expect him to play, but he's going to see a somewhat reduced workload. So that's the reason why Christian McCaffrey not showing up quite as often for us in the captain spot, and then we are a little bit underweight to him in the flex as well. And yet, so many of these lineups, nearly half of them, Brandon Ayuk in the captain spot. Who else are we getting to in captain? Yeah, some McCaffrey, but 10%. That's, nearly half of what the field has. Getting to some of the 49ers defense, getting to some of Hawkinson. But when you have 50% of Ayuk in the captain spot, you're going to be underweight to just about every other player in the captain spot there. So Ayuk by far the best captain play in our projections. Other flex options that we're getting to, 49ers defense, 40% of them getting about even with the field on TJ Hawkinson, a little bit overweight on George Kittle. So 35 and 34% of the 2 tight ends in this game. Other Vikings getting to some of Kirk Cousins, but well underweight to the field, underweight to Jordan Addison. So it's pretty clear. We want to be favoring the 49ers side of this game, at least as far as our exposures go. See if there's any really low-owned players we're getting overweight to. Ayuk's only 13% in the captain spot, so that is a pretty big stand. Brandon Powell is a big stand. Other low-owned players, Jake Moody's projected for 17.8% exposure, getting overweight to him. Some exposure to Josh Oliver as a punt play, but nothing else that I think is too notable over here. So that's going to wrap up talking about the DraftKings side of things. Let's go ahead and look at FanDuel now and see what's differing, what we're getting to on FanDuel. All right, so building out these lineups. Then we'll check to see what the prize pool is paying out to first on FanDuel to set it in the Sims tool. It is $650,000 prize pool and $150,000 of it to first place. So not nearly as top heavy as what DK is, but still getting to be a little bit more top heavy on FanDuel as the prize pools are getting a little bit smaller as the season goes on. So let's go ahead and set this to 25% to first place. Run the sim and see what we end up getting to here. I assume it's still going to be a lot of Ayuk, but maybe a little bit less in favor of some more Brock Purdy, just because there isn't the full point PPR bonus over on FanDuel. So that's going to be my guess, is still Brandon Ayuk is the most rostered MVP, but Brock Purdy probably a little bit closer over on FanDuel than he was on DK. Maybe a little bit more Christian McCaffrey as well. Touchdowns mattering a little bit more on FanDuel. Well, let's see. Favorite the top 150 lineups. Number one overall projected lineup by ROI here on FanDuel. Actually leaving a good amount of salary on the table, $2,500. It is Brandon Ayuk, 49ers defense, Jordan Addison, Brandon Powell, and Brock Purdy. So actually we do have two players from the Vikings in here, not a 4-1 49ers onslaught stack. And what is the most duped lineup here over on FanDuel? So a couple lineups that are expected to be duped really heavily. It is McCaffrey, 49ers, Kittle, Powell, Purdy. That's expected to be really popular, as well as Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Greg Joseph, Brock Purdy, and then Jake Moody. So very heavy on 49ers in terms of the most heavily duped lineups. Not really surprised. 49ers, sizable favorites tonight. If we go ahead and look at our exposures, and once again, getting well overweight to the field on Brandon Powell here. 20% projected ownership, getting to him in 36.7% of lineups. Getting to Jake Moody in a bunch of lineups as a cheaper option, 44.7% of him. And then as well as the 49ers defense. So yeah, kickers, defenses. That's the this is the way of the primetime football games. Brock Purdy getting to him in 36.7% of lineups. And then actually, getting to Brock Purdy is our most rostered MVP on FanDuel. A little bit flatter on FanDuel than on DK, where DK, as opposed to having the 50% of Brandon Ayuk, we've got 24% of Brock Purdy in the MVP, 20.7% of Ayuk. Ayuk projected for 13% ownership, Purdy at 12%. So those are two guys to get overweight to in the MVP spot on FanDuel, and fairly even exposure across the top 150 lineups. So if you guys are just playing like a couple of lineups, I'd say go like one Purdy and one Ayuk in the MVP spot. Other players that we're getting to here, about even with the field on Cousins and Hawkinson over on FanDuel. Who are we underweight to? Underweight on FanDuel, coming in well underweight to McCaffrey in the MVP spot. He's expected to be the most popular by a pretty good amount in that MVP spot. And considering some of the workload restrictions that seem to be possible for McCaffrey, I don't mind taking an underweight stance on him in tournaments today. We're underweight to him in both the the MVP and the flex spot. And then as far as kickers from Minnesota, we are underweight to Greg Joseph, even though we were overweight to Jake Moody on the 49ers side. So if we're looking to roster one of the kickers, Moody projecting a lot better for us than Greg Joseph. Also coming underweight here to George Kittle. Let's see, who are the low-owned players that we're getting overweight to? Anybody really low-owned? Getting north of 20% of Juwan Jennings. Getting to some of the Vikings defense here. I mean, at only 8% projected ownership for the Vikings on FanDuel, I don't mind getting them into some lineups. Wouldn't be my favorite play in the world, but still do have them 16%. So if you guys are playing, max multi-entry, I think that's a scenario where the Vikings do at least make some sense to get overweight to the field too. And then other players that are really low owned, Alexander Madison, about even with the field on him, but nothing else that stands out from that standpoint. Go back to the exposures column here to give you guys one last look at it and see if anything else stands out. Underweight to Jordan Addison, overweight to Cousins in the MVP spot. If you guys wanted to take a crazy chance on somebody with single-digit ownership, the Vikings always have a chance to win the game outright. That's where you get maybe like a Cousins to Hawkinson stack. Keep in mind, still no Justin Jefferson for the Vikings. And that's about it. That is going to do it for the roundup for today. If you guys have not done yet, do me a big favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Don't forget, link below in the description box if you guys are looking to sign up for our NFL package. Have a great time watching the game today. Hopefully this game doesn't suck, right? Can we get one good primetime game? Can you do it for us, NFL? Give us a good competitive Vikings 49ers game, maybe some points being scored. Hopefully one of us takes down a big tournament today. Basketball starts tomorrow. Also going to be talking about our basketball product in the near future, so be on the lookout for that. Guys, have a great one. Good luck tonight.